Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is Guy in His Garage. My name's Cam. And for those of you that have been here on the channel for a little while, you probably know that behind me is my 1950s Ford 8N. And today, we're finally getting back to it. So the goal for today is to get the tractor separated and the flywheel out. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to split the tractor right here to where the engine and the transmission housing meet each other. So there's a couple bolts we have to undo. We have to undo our tie rods and our supports. We have to take our hood back off, which you can probably hear fluid in the background. That's because I've already disconnected our fuel line from our carburetor and have it currently draining into a bucket on the other side. So once that finishes draining, we'll go ahead and get this hood off and start getting it separated. Okay guys, so as you can see, I utilized the cherry pick to get the hood off. The last time we took it off, I didn't have the cherry picker. Honestly, using that makes it a lot easier. One, it lifts up a little bit straighter, but two, doesn't beat me up as bad. So that's super helpful, but we needed it to be able to do this. So what I'm gonna do is I'll put a jack stand underneath the rear end. We'll use the cherry pick to hold the front end up and wheel it back just enough to be able to get into this housing to get our flywheel off so we can replace our ring gear. But before we get to that, if you weren't here before, you probably remember when I went to pull the starter out, I went to undo the last remaining bolt that holds our oil filter housing on, and it snapped off into our block. So real quick, we're going to try to retract those two bolts. There's one here and one here. We'll try to retract them with some retractor type bits that I picked up from Harbor Freight, and don't worry, they're not the cheapos, all right? They're Icon, so they should be pretty solid. So let's go ahead and get that done. Okay guys, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a punch, try to get it center of that bolt. And give it a good whack. And the purpose of this is so that when we take our drill bit, it should sit right in that little divot that we made with our punch, and makes it a lot easier to drill into the center. Okay, so now we'll line it up with our center punch. Get ourselves a good little hole. Same thing on the other one. Okay, so what we do with this specialized bit, guys, is you put it in the hole, just tap it a little bit, and this has shouldn't say cross thread, this has reverse thread on it. So as you actually go to loosen the bolt, it actually spins this in the direction to where those little grooves that are in it bite into it and should bring it out. And right now we're not looking good. We might need to drill deeper. All right, that's got me a little worried that it's gonna snap, so we can ruin our gasket. But Well, that's what I was afraid of. All right, we're gonna come back to that. We'll come back to that. I'll probably end up having to drill those holes slightly oversized and tap them and just use some slightly larger bolts in those holes. But for right now, we're gonna move on. We're not gonna let it get to us. So we gotta remove our tie rod ends, our supports here, just undo a couple pins, couple bolts. These should come apart. We also gotta undo our air intake over here, and then we can start taking our main bolts out of our housing. But what we gotta do first actually is we got 2 wires up here we gotta disconnect and pull the main wiring harness back, because it's wired into here and this will stay on the rear end, so we want to be able to make sure we can separate them. So we'll go ahead, get these 2 wires disconnected, and in all honesty, we'll get those disconnected and keep going. Okay guys, so the only thing keeping the 2 of them together now is 1 bolt here, 1 bolt here, and 1 bolt on the other side. I already got all the other ones removed, but I'm sure some of you are probably going to throw a fit over the fact I'm using a single ratchet strap to hold this up. So let's do something about that. Okay, so now that that's taken care of, let's go ahead, get our last few bolts out. Oh wow, I don't know if you guys see it, but we're already starting to get some separation here. Now there should be fluid in here, if I'm not mistaken, but definitely appears to be wet, so well, before we go any further, we got 1 more hose fitting we got out and do. I didn't even catch it. Okay. That really should be the last thing. So in theory, you now should be able to pull our 2 halves apart. Okay guys, all I'm going to do is get this high enough to where we can get one of our jack stands over the back end of this, so it's not just sitting on our hoist. Yeah, it definitely don't look like this has ever been apart. All right. Okay guys, as you can see, our tractor is split in half. So something we'll do is we'll clean all this up. There's definitely some oil getting in here. My understanding is this should be dry. Also looks like some type of clip that I'm gonna have to do some research and find out where that goes, because clearly that shouldn't be there. But so you guys see, that's actually our clutch. Those springs pull it back in, so it's good to see that that appears to be functioning correctly, and that pushes on these little tabs inside the actual clutch. The clutch plate is in here. I do have a new clutch plate for it just because I figured it's probably never been changed. So we'll undo these two bolts, and these two bolts, take that off, take the clutch plate off, and then we can focus on the 4 or 5 bolts that hold the actual flywheel to the engine. Okay guys, so I went to undo the 4 bolts that actually hold our flywheel onto our motor, and it became pretty apparent why sometimes when we would turn the ignition and engage the starter, that sometimes the engine would spin over, but most of the time it wouldn't. So obviously these bolts are tight, right? So when you turn them, the engine tries to spin over. Simple trick for that would normally be stick a pry bar in through the starter hole, get it lined up in here, right? It's gonna be kind of hard to do with one hand, so all right, you guys should be able to see it from there. So I got our breaker bar lined up with our ring gear, and I've got our ratchet on one of the bolts. Watch the ring gear. The ring gear is not holding still to our flywheel anymore, which is why sometimes it would spin the engine over and other times it wouldn't. So it's just me getting our flywheel out of here a little bit trickier. Okay guys, so I got that housing all cleaned up. So the last thing we should have to do for today is get this ring gear off. So what we'll do with that, so we'll use a punch, a small sledge, work our way around. All right, do another trick. So we're gonna do I would leave the hammer up there. This ain't looking too good, guys. Maybe. I don't think it is. I think it's just flopping around on the freaking thing. It almost looks like, guys, because our ring gear has been loose, it's beveled down into our flywheel I'm gonna do something I didn't want to do. I'm gonna cut a section as much as I can and then use a chisel punch to break that piece out to where we can then get separation to pull it off. And then we'll further inspect our flywheel and see if we got to replace that too or not. You know, they say these tractors are super reliable and easy to work on. Don't get me wrong, they're easy to work on, it's super reliable, but when you're dealing with something that's as old as this thing is, you know, we're dealing with a tractor that's 70, almost 80 years old. Some of this stuff, you know, you just got to do it. But the older they are, sometimes the more expensive the parts can be and harder to find and everything else. But let's try to get this off of here. Okay guys, so it's actually the next day. I was really tempted last night to actually put the new rig gear on and put this whole thing back together. But did a little bit further inspection on our flywheel. And unfortunately, it's probably hard for you guys to tell, but there's a couple grooves in here on the surface that our clutch plate will actually be pressed onto that I'm not okay with putting it back together. And the issue is, I don't know of any shop up here that can resurface a flywheel. Luckily for us, I'm about to actually jump in the truck and head to Lebanon Valley Speedway over a little bit further southeast New York. Go hang out with some family friends. They got a pro dragster. We might get some footage of that. Who knows? Stay tuned. That'll be probably in the following video. But after that, I'm going to Connecticut to my parents' house. We got some stuff we got to do down there. But there's a shop that my dad has known the owner for years. Actually, I went to school with one of his kids. But he does machine working. So that's everything from flywheels, boring out, resurfacing engines, manifold, you name it, he does it. So I'm going to try to take that to him and see if he can get it knocked out next week while I'm home. But before we get in the truck and we take off, there's one thing I want to do. Obviously, a couple videos ago, we just did a bunch of work on the rear end. Biggest thing I want to do is I want to go back through our lug nuts, make sure they're still torqued down pretty good. Let's get that done and hit the road. All right, so our torque wrench is still set to 65 foot-pounds. So far, so good. Other side. All right, we're good to go. Alrighty guys, other than taking my Milwaukee pack out of Snowflake, aka the Ford Focus, and throwing it into the truck, we're ready to hit the road. So hey, that's it for this video. Hope you guys like this type of stuff. If you do, go down, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. Does a lot of good for the channel, doesn't cost you guys a thing. And as always, thanks guys. Again, this is Guy in His Garage. My name's Cam. Catch you on the next one.